Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. We are now back in session. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Hurtak and Councilman Goods are now with us.
Why don't we, if we can, Mr. Chair, just for the sake of the record and the tape, just, if we could just take roll call again.
Let's take roll call again.
Carlson? Here. Vieira? Here. Maniscalco? Here. Hurtak?
Here.
Goods?
Here.
Miranda?
Here.
Citro?
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Barnes.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. There needs to be a waiver added between first and second reading if approving this rezoning, specifically to section 27-132 regarding off-street parking. The property, it says, must be used for commercial parking, must be immediately adjacent, not separated by the street right of way from the commercial use it will serve. So a waiver will be needed, or is needed, between first and second reading if approving the application.
Thank you.
We can only see Councilman Vieira very, very tight right now.
I know, it's like awkward. I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay. So can you see this presentation on your screens? Okay.
we can only see Lou's.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this next slide didn't quite age very well because we now will have a waiver added between first and second reading, but all of the City of Tampa reviewing staff did find this application consistent. And I wanted to give a little bit of additional background on the Planning Commission finding, and Sam did a really great job with this too. This is just a technicality based on the fact that the emergency shelter is not a definable use, or it's a definable use, but it's not a listed use in the city's table 4-1. As noted, this is an existing use carried forward from REZ 1924. We're not proposing an expansion of this use over the 2 new parcels added to the application. Those are commercial parking only. And then Sam mentioned this as well, but Planning Commission staff was very supportive of our proposed portion of this application. Again, removing 2 of those curb cuts along Morgan and having that consolidated one off of Henderson. We have sufficient buffering for the site as required, safe pedestrian connections via that crosswalk that we're providing over the new access point. And again, a little bit more of a background, as I promised earlier, on why we need some additional parking. So we're trying to preserve the Holtzinger building for an adaptive reuse. And this building was constructed in 1926. This aerial is from, or this photo is from 1936. And in order to leave this building, we need to find parking elsewhere. The surface lot is 26 spaces that we're proposing. The current site today has 13 spaces. So if we're, redeveloping this to some form of office use, we would be required 80 spaces based off of the square footage of the building. So those additional 26, if approved via this PD tonight, would be very, very helpful in decreasing our degree of a parking reduction that we would eventually need when going to propose a new use for this existing site. And that concludes our presentation, and we can answer any questions that you all might have.
Comments or questions? I have one. Going back to the waivers prior, were they on the specific property in question?
They were on the parcel included with REZ 1924. They don't apply to the land that we have added, not to the parking lot.
But now that the land that's being added is being combined as one, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
What were the waivers on the prior, on the next door property, is it?
I can read them. The first one is to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 48 to 39. The second one, commercial access to a local street, allow loading to occur in more than one continuous maneuver, and then to reduce the required VUA buffer area to the north from 8 to 1 feet, with payment in lieu at time of permitting.
I'm just questioning the parking. So are you asking for more parking because you're adding on more space?
So this is do you want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Council, I'm Tyler Hudson, 400 North Ashley Drive. My firm actually had the privilege of representing Salvation Army in 2019 for this rezoning. There were 3 parcels of land they own. They're single-family parcels that they didn't want to include in the original PD. Salvation Army has no intent to sell them. They have no intent to develop them. They did sell the old Red Shield Lodge, which we're now calling the Holtzinger building. Our client, Raj Patel, who's here with us, bought that. He wants to redevelop that as an adaptive reuse. The problem is the only parking spaces that are at that Holtzinger building don't meet technical standards. Jonathan would have a field day with them. We have a pending application to try to make those legally non-conforming, but due to some permit applications the Salvation Army filed, that might be in jeopardy. So it's possible the Holtzinger building would really have no zoning parking at all on site. So what we're trying to do is utilize this off-site parking for the Holtzinger building by adding those lands into this existing Salvation Army PD. But the new land we're adding in, again, the only waiver we require is it's from 27-136 to waive the adjacency requirement.
So and I'm trying to just wrap my head around it. You're going to be having people parking in one lot across the street to get to another building.
Yeah, that's correct. And whether this off-site parking is used for the Holtzinger building's zoning, that would be separate. That would go through a separate process, a design exception. But that's correct. Our client Raj, he has a lease already in place. It's conditional upon what happens here in the next couple of minutes, but has a lease for this land from the Salvation Army. They are the landlord. He is the tenant, and his building is, it's outside of this, but it's that way. It's just diagonal, one block diagonal.
Okay.
Because again, the Holtzinger building is a 28,000-ish square foot building that has extremely limited and potentially no technically compliant on-site parking. It would have none. And it's also unprotected. It's actually not in the historic district. We want to keep the building as it is. It's pretty well built. They used to put cars up on the roof. But to do that, we have to have some parking. I'm usually here asking for parking reductions. I might be asking for one later this evening. We need to establish some parking at all.
And I gather that, I gather that. The questions I had earlier are kind of irrelevant about it being an emergency shelter. Let's put that out of the way. What kind of safety measures are you going to put in place for these people that you're now having park in one section to cross the street and go to another building?
Sure. Well, those existing sidewalks, I mean, that was improved when this site got redeveloped, because again, if you're going up Florida Avenue on the right side, you had the Salvation Army office building. The left side was Red Shield Lodge. Now everything has been consolidated into the building on the right, that building, which is operational today. So there are sidewalks in place. I mean, the code requires that if we were to count this off-site parking as part of the Holtzinger building zoning parking, it has to be a clear, well-lit path. So those are the things that we would deal with as that were to get permitted. But right now, I mean, the sidewalks are in pretty good shape by Tampa Heights standards. I live a couple blocks away. I drive by it constantly. I mean, it's a pretty clear path to get there. I mean, it's half of one block, half of another block, and you're at the Holtzinger building.
Well, legal, if I'm asking too many questions, if I'm asking the wrong questions, please tell me.
No.
There is other places around the city where they have a parking lot on one side of the street, but their main building is on the other, and somebody has to cross the street to get to their building. Florida Avenue is a heavy use traffic. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of safety precautions you're going to put in place so those people can cross Florida Avenue safely.
Besides the sidewalk, there's a limit on what we can do. I mean, we can't add a stop sign or a red light. FDOT
Flashing,
wouldn't let us do that.
crossing.
I think there's things that we can do in consultation with FDOT, but I want to be candid that our options are going to be a little bit limited because FDOT can be a little challenging to deal with. But there's a lot more lighting on the street as a result of the redevelopment, again, of that building. From the Holtzinger building perspective, I mean, Raj, I'm sure will install adequate wayfinding. That's a little bit though, because that Holtzinger building, that's a beneficiary of what's happening here, but that is not part of the property that's before you on the zoning. The only property we're talking about rezoning are these 3 lots that we want to add and just turn into a parking lot.
Thank you, Counselor, for indulging me. Any other further questions? Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir, it does.
Is there anybody in chambers that would like to speak, give public comment?
Move to close.
Do we have anybody online?
No one is registered.
Move to close.
Second. We have a motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any nays? No. If motion passes. Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir.
I move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an owned ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1603 North Florida Avenue and 318 and 320 East Henderson Avenue in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM 24 residential multifamily to PD plan development to PD plan development emergency shelter facility, commercial off-street parking, and business professional office providing an effective date.
Second.
Was there an additional waiver that had to be added to that?
Annie Barnes Development Coordination, I just would like, for the record, to make sure that the additional waiver to section 27-132 for off-street commercial parking is entered into the record as well.
I hereby incorporate your remarks.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on January 19th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Agenda item number 5, file number REZ 22-90. Ms. Barnes.
Annie Barnes Development Coordination, the next item before you is REZ 2290. Request is rezoned from PD to PD for a business professional office located at 2500 West Azeal Street. I'm going to turn over the presentation to the Planning Commission.
Same comments with your planning commission staff. The subject site is located within the Central Tampa Planning District and the Palmacia neighborhood, Palmacia West neighborhood. The closest transit stop is located north of the subject site at the corner of West Azeal and South Armenia Avenue. Hyde Park is the closest recreational facility, and the subject site is located within a level C evacuation zone. Here is an aerial map of the subject site. The site is bound by South Armenia and West Azeal Street. As you can see, the area is very urban and developed in character. It's a mix of multifamily development, single-family attached, and some single-family detached units. Just to the east of the site is South Howard Avenue, which is a well-known commercial corridor. Here is the adopted future land use map of the subject site. The site is recognized under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation. That designation is found to the east of the site and is one of the dominant future land uses in the area. Down south here in the red is the Community Commercial 35. And then this purple here is the Urban Mixed Use 60, which is even more intense and dense than the Community Mixed Use 35. Then to the west of the site is the Residential 20 future land use designation. And this light blue color down here is Memorial Hospital, which is the public, semi-public designation. The planned development proposes an FAR of 0.86, which is consistent with the intensity anticipated under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation. The requested increase in intensity will meet the direction of the comprehensive plan while still providing a balance to the neighborhood character that the comprehensive plan seeks to protect. The request is also consistent with several policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to development within mixed-use corridors. The PD is pedestrian friendly with the building oriented to the front of the property along West Azeal Street and parking located towards the rear of the property. Additionally, pedestrian connections are provided to the existing sidewalks along the adjacent right-of-ways. The proposed PD is consistent with the development pattern anticipated under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation, and it is comparable and compatible with the surrounding development pattern. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Any comments or questions? Thank you.
Annie Barnes Development Coordination, again, this is REZ 2290, requesting to rezone property located at 2500 West Azeal Street from PD to PD to allow for a business professional office use. The subject site is approximately 31,000 square feet in size. It's located at the southwest corner of West Azeal Street and South Armenia Avenue. The site is surrounded with residential multifamily to the north and south, and PD and RM16 zoning to the west, and PD zoning to the east with residential single-family attached uses. Building placement is located on the north end of the site with surface parking located at the south at ground level. The proposed use requires 90 parking spaces and 59 spaces are being provided. A waiver is requested, which is 34% reduction. Additionally, a waiver is requested to reduce the landscape buffer from 10 feet to 5 feet and reduce the VUA buffer along the right-of-way to the east and north. Overall, development review and compliance staff finds the request inconsistent based on the requested waivers. Just to familiarize you with the site, this is the subject site on the north side, facing south of Azeal. And this is the corner of Azeal and Armenia, showing the subject site. This is the south end of the site looking west. And then this is looking north, east from Armenia from the site. And property directly east of the site, as well as property west of the site. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Good evening, Council. Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward and Henderson. We will be very brief given the long day and the late hour this evening. I'm representing the applicant EMI Office, which is a single-purpose entity owned and controlled by Eisenhower Property Group, which is a local real estate development company. And if this looks and sounds familiar to you, it may, because we were just before you for a plan amendment earlier this year, which was unanimously approved, and we had no opposition from anyone in the surrounding neighborhood. As Annie did indicate, because of the parking waiver that we are requesting, transportation has found us inconsistent, but in all other aspects, this application is consistent. And to address those waivers, I'm going to ask Steve Lutz from Eisenhower Property Group to come up and talk to you about those.
Thank you, Cammie. Steve Luce, and I have been sworn in. Look, Mr. Chair and City Council members, as you can see on the Elmo, where the location of the subject site is, as described by both Planning Commission staff and your staff. The parking waiver that we're requesting and the justification for it is that, first of all, size of the building is 27,000 square feet. We currently have 26 employees. And we are trying to establish our headquarters at this location. We do want to expand in the future. And it's a combination of landscape architects, design engineers, real estate acquisition folks. I'm a land planner, works for the company. We do a lot of work in Hillsborough County, Manatee County. We do a lot of traveling work as well. But the waiver that supports the waiver, is the areas in green. There's on-street parking along Azeal and Armenia. We calculated and walked that area. It's about 50 spaces. I didn't go all the way down to Swan, which is off that aerial graphic. There are more on-street parking spaces nearby. There are also bus stops, one directly across the street from us, about half a block to our south. There's also another bus stop over on Howard. So there are 3 bus stops within very close walking distance of each other. We are going to do bike racks on site. I would say that the parking that is on street, it may be used during the evening and weekends by folks that live in the area. We're bringing an office space to this area. Not a lot of office buildings in the area today. We will use those on-street parking spaces during the day and at nighttime and on weekends. The residential uses will use those on-street parking spaces. And the retail uses that are over on Howard, if there's any sort of spillover on-street parking, that also is at night and on weekends. So we think there's a good mix of use of those on-street parkings by our office and the residential and retail uses that are in the area. I would add that of the 59 parking spaces that we're providing, and we have 26 employees now and hope to grow to 44 in the future, we do have people that never come into the office. They're out in the field, they're inspecting our land development sites. They come in every once in a while to report to the boss and let the boss know what they're up to and what they're finding, but they primarily communicate to us through texting, calls, emails. We also have folks that work from home. We also do some traveling and telecommuting as well. So any given day, there's probably 20% of our staff that are not at the office at all. So I think between the aggregate in terms of our workforce, what we have today, what we're looking for in the future, there's more than ample parking on our site. And in the event we need more, there are plenty of on-street parking spaces within very close proximity to our site. And so that I believe provides ample support for the parking waiver. I do want to address very quickly the waivers regarding the 10-foot buffer and the 8-foot vehicle use area buffer. This is a graphic showing the architectural rendering of the property, of our building that we're proposing on this site. We're in design with our architect. What we've done is really we wanted to do it, but also the planning commission staff and your staff wanted us to bring the building up to the street, to encourage walking, to bring life to the street. And we wholeheartedly agree with that. So our building is about 5 feet off the property line. What we want to do is widen that sidewalk to 10 feet. And so there's encouragement for us to get out during the day and walk over to Howard for our lunch hour. And we think it is a good approach to dealing with the urban sort of feel for this corner location. That applies to both the 10-foot to 5-foot buffer and also between an 8-foot visual use area, vehicle use area, and the request is to go down to 5 feet. It's really all about bringing the building up to the street. That's why we asked for that waiver. So those are the two, parking waivers and buffer waiver. And with that, hopefully we have your support. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Councilman Maniscalco.
Is the architect here for this project?
Yes.
That's a really great design. My compliments. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I thank you for the 10-foot sidewalk.
Yes.
The only thing that I would ask is that trees would be in there so that people would have shades to walk in that 10-foot sidewalk.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And finally, council, we did receive about a half a dozen calls from the residential neighborhoods directly to the east, and all of them were thrilled and relieved we're building an office building, not a bar or restaurant or other entertainment venue. So I just wanted to share with that, and with that, we'd respectfully request your approval.
That does conclude your presentation. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this? Do we have anyone online?
No one is registered.
Second. Motion to close by everyone. Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Excuse me, who is next? Councilman Vieira.
I'll do it again.
I'm sorry, Councilman Carlson.
I'd like to move file number REZ 22-90, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 2500 West Azeal Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification PD plan development to PD plan development business professional office providing effective date.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Vieira. Any further discussion? I would just like to say I'd like to see more development like this. Thank you very much on all aspects. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda? I'm sorry, couldn't hear you. Yes? Okay. Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods? Vieira?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on January 19th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Agenda item number 6, file number REZ 22-100.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Next agenda item before you is REZ 22-100. The request is to rezone 2401 West Platt Street from RM24 to PD for residential multiple family uses. I'm going to turn over the presentation to the Planning Commission.
Tim Thomas with your Planning Commission staff. This is located in the Central Tampa Planning District in the South Howard neighborhood. The closest transit stop is located north of the subject site at the corner of West Azeal and South Armenia Avenue. Hyde Park is the closest recreational facility, and the subject site is located within a level C evacuation zone. This aerial map is going to look very familiar to you guys because it's just across the street from where we were just talking about. The subject site is right here on West Platt Street, just a little to the east of South Armenia Avenue. As I said just previously, the area is a mixture of uses. It's right by the South Howard corridor. There's multifamily development in the area. There's single family attached and single family detached. This is the Publix right here. Here's the adopted future land use map. The subject site is recognized under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation. The area is largely Community Mixed Use 35. It does abut some residential 35 designation, which is a high density multifamily designation. You have the urban mixed use 60 over here, and then the lighter brown color is the residential 20 designation. The planned development proposes an FAR of 2.0, which is consistent with the intensity anticipated under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation. Since the site exceeds the by right FAR of 1.0, the applicant has entered into a bonus agreement with the city. Planning Commission staff finds that the proposed intensity is consistent with the underlying future land use designation, and the request is consistent with several policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to development within the mixed-use corridor. The comprehensive plan encourages uses along mixed-use corridors to be oriented to the street by placing the buildings toward the front of the properties with entries and stoops fronting the street. The applicant is providing an entrance along South Moody Avenue and also sidewalks that connect to the adjacent right-of-ways, meeting the intent of the mixed-use corridor policies. The request also supports many policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing the city's population. The comprehensive plan encourages new housing on vacant and underutilized land to accommodate the housing supply needed for Tampa's present and future populations. In conclusion, the PD is consistent with the development pattern anticipated under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation, and it's comparable and compatible with the surrounding development pattern. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Comments or questions? Ms. Barnes?
Amy Barnes, Development Coordination. Again, this is request is to rezone 2401 West Platt Street from RM24 to PD for residential multiple family uses. The subject site is approximately 6,000 square feet in size. And it is located northwest of the intersection of West Platt Street and South Moody Avenue. It's surrounded with residential and commercial uses. The most existing commercial uses are along both sides of West Platt Street. There is a Publix grocery store as well as residential multiple family uses and a property zoned CG directly east of the property with the business professional office. The subject application requests approval of approximately 12,000 square foot building with 12 residential multiple family units. A total of 21 parking spaces are required and 11 spaces are being provided, a 48% reduction. Additionally, the applicant is requesting a waiver to allow vehicular backup from 6 feet to 5.5 feet. And the applicant is also requesting a third waiver to provide only 50 square feet of green space per unit out of the required 750 green space per unit. The applicant is proposing 2 affordable dwelling units restricted for rental occupancy for a period of 30 consecutive years. And this is as part of the bonus provision agreement. So as Mr. Thomas already stated from the Planning Commission, the proposed FAR is 2.0, and that is through the bonus provision agreement. Staff requires the development review and compliance staff finds the request inconsistent based on the requested waivers and development coordination. The use is appropriate in the area. However, the waivers, specifically the minimum green space, is significant. Let me show you some pictures of the subject site. So this is the subject site facing north, directly east of the subject site. at the corner of Platt, and west of the site is the Publix. And this is directly south. And then further north, there are residential, multiple family uses. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Petitioner.
Home stretch. My name is Tyler Hudson. My address is 400 North Ashley Drive. I'm going to give a brief presentation. Pleasure to be here today. On behalf of Avid Ventures, Tim Johnson is with us. He's the property owner and developer. Tim is the former CFO of Water Street, so knows a little bit about development, although I will say this is going to be a very different project than Water Street. Also, from the civil engineering perspective, we've got Kimberly Horn here, Scott Gilner, and Ben Plant. I think this is an incredibly exciting project because this is basically a single family zoning lot, that size-wise. It's 0.14 of an acre. And this has the potential to be a home for 12 people. To put 12 homes on a site that could easily instead accommodate $3 million townhomes. This is going to be a 12 unit, kind of a missing middle category. I think a lot of times, council, you see a lot of housing projects that are giant, 300, 350, 400 units, or it's a single family lot split in South Tampa and the room is full of people. You don't see a lot of these kind of missing middle-sized projects, and that's what we're really excited to present today. And Cammie and I didn't coordinate this. The site is just a stone's throw of the project you just approved. To better orient you, actually, you see the red and subject site. Just west of that is a fallen Tampa treasure. Remember Inkwood Books. If you're facing Inkwood Books, this is just to the right of that. It's currently a business professional office. So again, the proposal is 12 units. As you look at this, west is up, so there's some frontage on Platt Street. 4 stories, 50 feet in height. On the affordable housing, as Annie alluded to, we're going to be 12 units, 1.2. We're not providing 1.2 units of affordable housing. We're rounding that up to 2. One of the units will be restricted at 80% AMI rents, the other at 120% AMI rents. Development is about trade-offs. It's about a trade-off between my client's private property rights and zoning, which we can kind of think of as like a right held by the public collectively. There's a trade-off there. You guys have seen that firsthand tonight. But it's also a trade-off about sort of the physical characteristics of the site. You want to have more buffers, you're going to have less parking. You want to go make your building a little bit taller, sometimes you have more opportunities to do other things. This is a tight site, it's dense. We think it's exactly appropriate, and Sam, as Sam said, his expertise finds it consistent with the comprehensive plan, but it does require some waivers, and I'm going to have Alex come up and talk about those now.
I'll start off Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive for the record. These are just some renderings of the 2D layout that Tyler just showed with the site plan. The first one is at that corner of Platt and Moody. As you can see, we try to really activate that intersection corner, although the entrance to the building is along Moody. There's still pedestrian engagement along both Platt and Moody. The second one, you can see more of the rear of the building, and that's along Platt. You can see the bike storage area as well. And then the bottom one is looking just directly from Moody at the front of the building. As Tyler mentioned, Planning Commission found this application consistent, as well as the City of Tampa reviewing departments also listed on the screen. We are requesting 3 waivers, which have been alluded to already, and I want to spend some time going through each of these. We did extensive research, and I wanted to share that with you all. So the first one is a parking reduction. As you can see, our site is located in the middle of this light green bubble on the screen. So everything shown within this radius is a 5-minute walk from the site. So as you can see, a major grocer, Publix, is located just south. There's a plethora of food and beverage in the area that's easily reachable by foot. Zooming out a little bit, this is a 10-minute walking radius from the site. So again, you can see our site, the 2401, is located right in the middle. And again, there's 2 major grocers, Publix and Winn-Dixie, within a 10-minute walking distance from the site. Tons of food and beverage, health services, pharmacy, bank, etc. And I did want to note, we talked a little bit about bike infrastructure here, and we are providing a private and dedicated area for the bike storage. You can see there's 4 bike racks shown in there, each accommodating multiple bikes. And this is accessible from Platt, so along the pedestrian sidewalk there, it's going to be a gated access into the bike storage area. And we think this is really, really important because we think this site is actually a really, really great candidate for biking. And I know we've mentioned it before, and it's, it's an alternative form of transit, but we think it's one that really, really works at this specific site. As you can see, almost every single errand that you would need to run was within a 2-minute or less bike ride from the site. So this, again, centrally located, easily reachable to many different services. And there's also a buffered bike lane here. So that's located along Platt Street, right along the site's frontage. And I think that's important too, because not only are we providing the storage for the bikes and encouraging that on our site, but it's also established via the city's infrastructure as well. This is also a transit emphasis corridor, the section of Platt, so I wanted to note that additionally. Finally, for further justification for the parking waiver, we're actually providing a 0.9 space per unit. That's the actual ratio that we're providing with this reduction. And if this were located in Channel District, we would be only required to have 9 spaces, CBD 9 spaces as well, but here we're required 21. Again, as shown in the previous slides, we think this site is accessible via foot and bike to many different services, similar to you would be in the Channel District or in the CBD. The second waiver, this one's a little bit unique, and this is directly related to the size of the site and the circulation within the parking garage. We're reducing the backup width, which is shown in the yellow area there, from 6 feet to 5.5 feet. So we've run vehicular auto turn on this, and this works with the specific garage design. Again, this is a little bit more technical. We have civil here for specific questions, but this is just a half-foot reduction in that width provided for the vehicular backup internal to the parking garage. And the final request is a green space waiver, and I know Annie mentioned this, and Tyler was alluding to this earlier. So this is a little bit in terms of the way the code is applied. So in terms of calculating green space for your site, if your multifamily building is 6 floors or above, you're able to use a percentage calculation of your remaining land area after your building footprint. If you're less than 6 stories, a similar development as this one, 4 stories, you're required to provide a square footage requirement. For this one, since we have a garage at 750 square feet per unit. So I'm going to run through a little bit of math here. So we have 12 units proposed, so multiply that by 750, and we're required to provide 9,000 square feet of green space. As mentioned in the beginning, the site's a little bit over 6,000 square feet, as you can see on the screen. So this is a really, really great example how sometimes a direct application of the city's code isn't feasible, and that's exactly what we've run into here. So cannot provide 9,000 square feet of green space on a 6,000 square foot site. Could we reduce the density? Yes, and I think that's another argument to be made. However, if we were to knock this down from 12 units to 4 units, we could provide the green space required, which is 50% of the site. However, given the site's location here, again, this is CMU 35, so this is a relatively dense land use category. We're bonusing up to a 2.0 FAR, which is allowed on the site. So we feel like the comprehensive plan definitely supports this level of density, and it would be underserving to provide only 4 units just to accommodate some green space on this one. And then lastly, as Tyler mentioned, we are doing an affordable housing component to get our bonus density for this project. And we think this is really precedential in the fact that, it's only 2 units that are being provided because the development is really small. But we think this is a really good example of how developers can provide affordable housing on these smaller infield deals. We see a lot, as Tyler mentioned, 300 units, gasworks size developments, and they're providing affordable housing. But we think that every single contribution matters, and we'd like to see, more smaller deals be able to provide this. And we think this is setting a really good example for that. And with that, I'll conclude our presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Comments or questions? Excuse me, I have Councilwoman Hurtak.
Yes. Just a comment. I really, I love the fact that you're really looking at missing middle and including more affordable housing than you would even need to. I'm not as concerned with the green space waiver, but 11 spaces and 12 units. So is it just like a lottery, or? I have to ask the question.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Tim can answer that a little bit in greater depth. Given the location of the site, this is near the Soho Bar District, just kind of candid. We do think there might be a couple upperclassmen of UT who are interested in the site. We think this number of parking spaces is exactly appropriate, but you're going to lease the parking space separately from your lease of the unit. So if the first 11 units, if those folks bring their cars too, the 12th unit, that person is out of luck. They will not have a parking space available. And a little bit, as you heard earlier from the folks who were commenting on, I think it was item three who had stuck around. There are folks who don't have cars. Do most folks have cars in Tampa? Of course they do. But the renter demographic, we think, for a site like this in the Bar District, proximate to the University of Tampa, the city invested a ton of money in turning Platt into like a fairly, pretty legitimate bike artery. That's on the front door of this site. So we think the amount of parking is entirely appropriate. Tim's the expert and the developer and can talk maybe about his market research he's done to justify that. But we believe that 0.9 per unit for this area is completely reasonable. And if he's wrong, it's on him.
Councilman Goode.
Those two attainable housing units, I don't say affordable, I say attainable. Are they the same size as all the units will be?
All the units are pretty, do you want to answer that?
I haven't been sworn in, so sorry.
Please raise your right hand to be sworn in. You affirm or swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the
I
truth,
do.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Swear or affirm. Thank you.
On the size of the affordable units, we have not done the final interior floor plans yet. We're here to get the rezoning approved. We do think that they could be integrated into the site. We have 4 potential different floor plans, and depending on what we get approved, that will dictate where they are.
And I don't have an issue, you know, I'm glad that some developers are seeing what council was asking about utilizing dollars to put some attainable housing in use. But what I don't want to see is that we start throwing units in there and it's these small little units in versus a standard unit like everybody else. So I just want to be cautious of that. So I want to make sure we're going to play. Let's play the game right, you know?
They will, I mean, it is a limited, tight site, as Tyler said, so there's only so much space we have. So all the units are gonna be fairly similar in size. They're not micro units. They won't be micro units. I can tell you that. They would be a regular size apartment unit that's gonna be comparable with other units in the building. And there will be market rate units of the same size.
Ask my question.
Any other questions? My question is different. Parking, that's your business model. If you want somebody to rent from you that doesn't want to park, that's your business model. My concern is green space. Had we have had 20% affordable housing, had we had the 10-foot wide sidewalks from what we had seen earlier, I would have been a little bit more happy about it. But it seems to me that you're just putting so much on this lot and not giving anything to the surrounding areas, green space, wider sidewalks. Because there is no off-street parking here. So that's out the window. Again, your business model is not to have enough parking spaces. That's up to you.
Chairman, development's a trade-off, and I don't want to keep repeating that, but if you go walk down some of the neighborhoods in Chicago, Washington, Boston, cities that developed pre-zoning, which happened a lot, you don't necessarily, the green space is integrated throughout the city itself. It's not every single lot has to have the people and the green space. You're building sort of into a larger neighborhood, a larger community, and we think that it is better for the city to have more units. We have a housing shortage. There's no silver bullet to the housing affordability challenges we have, but the lack of supply is a major problem. It's going to add 12 needed units too, which are going to be rent restricted. We think this is definitely, well, it's not perfect, to make that very clear. This is not a perfect development. I've yet to bring one to you. But we think this strikes the right balance given its location, and 12 units is appropriate for the site. And
I'm only speaking for myself.
Understand.
Yeah. Is there anyone in the audience that, I'm sorry, Councilman
I know you
Miranda.
mentioned Washington and Boston, but they both have transit systems.
They do.
The reason we don't have transit here, because everybody's got a car, or they don't have a transit system. That's why you gotta have a car.
That's true. But we are providing 0.9 spaces per unit, and this council very recently said that 0.75 was good enough for the Channel District in CBD. I would say that while this area is not the Channel District or the CBD, it's got some pretty good density. It's literally across the street from a Publix. We think this is going to attract folks who might not have a car, and we do not believe there's going to be a parking problem here. It's not good for us if there is.
Well, my logic with that was that hopefully the streetcar is gonna be extended, which would make public transportation more viable for that area.
Hope
Now, that's a
springs
different
eternal.
subject.
Yes.
That's a different subject. Anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to this? Do we have anyone online?
No one is registered.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sulang. We have a motion to close by whom? Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlson. I'm sorry, Mr. Carlson, you read the last one, didn't you?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilman Maniscalco.
All right, thank you very much. I have an ordinance, actually, well, there's a substitute resolution here, so, okay. I have an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 2401 West Platt Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RM24 residential multifamily to PD plan development residential multifamily, providing an effective date. I see compliance here with the applicable goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan. The proposed development is consistent with land use policies 9.6.1 and 9.8.4 and housing policies 1.3.1, 1.3.3, and 1.3.4, which encourage new housing on vacant and underutilized land to ensure that an adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's present and future populations. Compliance with the Land Development Code, Section 27-136. The proposed development, as shown on the site plan, promotes or encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, and also the waivers in compliance with Section 27-139-4. The design of the proposed developments is unique and therefore in need of waivers. The requested waivers will not substantially interfere with or injure the rights of others whose property would be affected by the waivers. That's my motion. I know there's a substitute resolution to follow that. At second reading, yes.
Second. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Any further discussion?
No.
I really want to support this, but I'm not. All right, roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Goods, Vieira,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on January 19, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Information and reports. Let's go with Councilman Miranda.
I would like to make a motion to welcome representatives from Zoo Tampa at Lowry Park to
Second.
present their master plan. They're scheduled for December, but the administration asked for continuance, and the zoo is ready to present at this time. Our deputy clerk, city clerk, advised me that there's capacity to schedule the fine people from Zoo Tampa at Lowry Park on Thursday, January 19, 2023. We would like for them to be scheduled immediately following any ceremonials if possible, because they're bringing a very special guest to visit council members. I think it's a hungry lion.
I hope it is. I hope it is. Second.
Motion
I
made-
would be remiss not to mention that Zoo Tampa at Lowry Park is Florida's most cultural institution and leading in wildlife conservation. And just for the record, they have broken the previous record from 2021, which had attendance of 1,105,049 guests. And this year, they broke the record with 1,152,846 guests.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Number two, I'd like to make an accommodation for someone who has 60 years of service to Tampa citizens. That's
Second.
Mary Bryant. I'm not going to say anymore because you're going to kill me.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Goods.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, some might not know that Dr. Bruce Miles passed away this week. Long-serving dentist in our community, and also was the president of the Black Caucus of the state in Hillsborough County. His service will be held next week on the 21st. That to give accommodation at the service for his
Second.
family.
Very, very, very nice man.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Secondly, that the commendation be given to the We See You, Inc., a nonprofit organization on January 10th for their determination dedicated to the city of Tampa of making a positive impact on their communities and helping less fortunate families in the Tampa Bay area.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Also, that the legal department create a resolution to allow the City of Tampa Black History Committee to utilize the city seal for the 2023 City Black History Committee program celebration.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
I don't mean to be Mr. Vieira, and I would have one more here. As you know, we've been having issues with our right-of-ways, with people gathering and gambling and homelessness on these right-of-ways. A lot of complaints from citizens. So I'd like to see the legal department to research the parameters around gathering on public sidewalks, right-of-ways, and unauthorized gatherings to reduce criminal activities such as gambling and et cetera.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
That's it, sir.
Councilwoman Hurtak. Councilman Maniscalco.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, I know we have a busy January 10th presentation session, but I'd like to invite DC Gatufas to do a short 5-minute presentation regarding a possible street renaming for a Mr. Jim Urbanski. If you know the name and you know why he's important to Tampa, I'd like for Mr. Gatufas to come and present on January 10th at 9 a.m.
I'll second it so long as he brings his dog.
Apollo, the dog Apollo.
And how long a presentation is that, sir?
5 minutes, yeah. And I'll communicate with him so he knows to be here.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Vieira. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Maniscalco. Do you have another?
And a happy Hanukkah to those celebrating. Hanukkah begins this weekend, and of course, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. That's it.
And if I may, Sunday night, we have Hanukkah, the
Menorah lighting.
Yeah. Just really fast, many of y'all may have known Connor Darkin, who worked with my office here for a couple of years. Such a nice guy. He took a full-time job at the clerk's office, and I wanted to give him a city council commendation on February 7th of 22. That's at our commendation meeting.
Second.
Yeah. No. City steward. City steward. I'm sorry. Yeah. Did I say city? Yeah. Okay. My bad. I'm sorry. Yep.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
And then really fast, motion for commendation off premises, the Barbas Law for 40 years.
Second.
Excellent. Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Commendation off premises, Chantel Hevia, that's Chantal, last name Hevia, for her work with the Ybor Museum.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
And then lastly, Rise Up for Peace. I had mentioned something about them during the meeting today, and I got a call from the chief of staff indicating that they would potentially be amenable for gosh, I'm tired, I'm sorry, for the Social Action Fund. So I want to do just a motion, just to request it. We don't need it to come back, just to formally request it. We'll do a memo to the administration, see if they can give them some funds, and that's it.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Will that come from your office, sir, the memo, what you said?
Sure.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Thank you. And that's it. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, two quick ones related to issues we discussed today. We talked about the lack of funding for parks. And so I'd like to make a motion to ask staff to report on February 2nd as to potential alternative funding sources / grants available for purchasing new parkland.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
And then the second one is the people from Harbor Island were talking about the traffic getting on and off the island. One of the things that I find is that during events, which is more and more often, they shut down all the roads. And I've talked about this a few times, but I don't think I've made a motion to put it on an agenda. I'd like to motion to ask staff to report on February 2nd as to whether it is necessary still, I'm gonna say still necessary to shut down to shut downtown roads during downtown events, and if there is a better way to manage traffic for residents and visitors.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
That's it, thank you.
Mr. Shelby?
Did you have anything for yourself, sir?
Yes, I do.
Well, why don't, after you, that'll be, unless you want to, why don't we take care of the city council's business first?
Council members, I have had various reports from all over the city of bicyclists that are riding, causing danger to themselves and danger to others, not obeying the rules of the road. And I would like to have a staff report, legal and TPD. And I'm just trying to figure out when we can get that in. Do we have a date, Madam Clerk, that we can get that in staff first where we're not overloaded? Hopefully sometime in January, the beginning of February.
February 2nd's fairly light.
Yeah, it is now.
February 2nd. I'd like to have a staff report from legal and TPD, seeing what can be done. Again, I'm getting calls from residents from all around the city that are concerned about bicyclists that are riding improperly in our roads, pulling wheelies, again, being a danger not only to themselves but to motorists. Councilman Carlson.
And I'll second that if nobody seconded it, but, yeah, I've gotten a bunch of calls too, and there's a lot of discussion on Nextdoor. For anybody watching, it's not just bicyclists driving haphazardly. Apparently there are gangs of lots of bicyclists that surround cars and intimidate them.
I didn't want to put it that way.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say bicyclists.
Yeah, so it's a particular kind of thing that's happening. We've reported several issues to TPD, and they're supposedly looking into it.
That's why I want to have this work. But if I may, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but we also have the spandex crowd, which also rides their bicyclists in groups that are staying within the bike lanes and whatnot. So I just want to find out about bicyclists that aren't following the rules of the road, posing a danger to themselves and motorists and pedestrians. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I mean, I have to say, we actually have quite a few bike clubs that bike throughout the city, and cyclists are allowed to use the road.
They are.
In groups. So I just want to make sure that we're not, I just have to say that, because as a cyclist who joins those groups, we're riding legally.
I did not say you were doing it illegal. I said posing a hazard. There are some that, but that's why we'll have this discussion. As a person who's gone on many bike rides recently, okay, we have a motion. I'm sorry, you take this one.
No, go. Oh.
I made the motion.
We have,
Go.
we have a motion from Chairman Citro, second from Councilman Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You good?
I'm good. Motion to receive and file.
Wait.
Oh.
Council, thank you. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I'll make this very quick. Councilmember Miranda has an outstanding memory, as we all know, with regard to the issue of continuance or a misnotice or failing to appear. It actually does appear in the code. It appears in section 2761 in two places. It would be 2761 J2B, which is a review of a board hearing, and 2761 J3B, which is review of AR permits. And I trace that back to ordinance number 2018-3. So it dates back to January of 2018 when it was first put into the code, but only in those sections. So what I'm saying to you is I will be coming back to you with a recommendation at the next meeting in January, I would suspect, how we can resolve this issue in light of the language that's in the code, expanding it to other sections or putting it in the rules of procedure. But I will address that, and I said I would follow up last week, so I did a deep dive, and here we are. Have a happy holiday. council, and a happy new year. Thank you.
Move to receive and file.
We have a motion to receive and file by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Council Carlson. All in favor? We're adjourned. Happy holidays.